Test. Test. All right.
We're going.
Okay, sorry for the delay. So everyone's familiar with getting these kinds of advertisements, emails, TV commercials, radio commercials, on and on it goes. It's estimated that the fake pharma business is, and some of those are legitimate TV commercials and whatnot, but the illegitimate stuff, it's estimated that it's a business that has made $75 billion with a B dollars annually. Though the stats are hard to come by, obviously, since it's in the underworld. But the fake pharma is alive and well. If you start looking around the internet, you won't like what you find. This talk is based on an incident that my company worked about 3-4 years ago. And so that sounds like a long time ago, and that this problem would hopefully have been resolved. But it's still quite a prevalent problem, as I'm about to show you. Who am I? So I'm a principal security analyst at Sword and Shield. Normally, I pwn boxes. I don't try and stop them from being pwned, which was this incident that we worked. Every now and again, I get into the other side and try and stop the bad guys rather than be the bad guy. So the last bullet there. Once we get to the end of the presentation, hopefully you'll nominate or know someone who can nominate me for the Nobel Peace Prize, and you'll understand why when we get there. All right. So we're going to have an intro. I'm getting into the intrusion details. Obviously, no attribution. Though I will attribute other parts of the presentation. These unfortunate victims we don't have any association with, and I'm sorry if you are associated with these, but it kind of makes more impactful presentation. Then if you see what you like and you actually want to become a Pharma affiliate, I'm going to show you how to do that. Then we're going to do give you a step-by-step guide to finding an intrusion on your own, and then we're going to learn how to save the internet and mankind process. All right, let's begin. All right, it's not that complicated, guys. It's you'll see how easy this really is, and everybody can do it on their own. It's just simple search engine syntax. And you can follow along if you have a computer and hop on the wireless. All right, so imagine using an internet search engine to see if your favorite pharmaceutical is USDA approved, which, by the way, that's a bad search because the USDA doesn't control drugs. That's the FDA, right? So, but you see in that process, when you make that search, something unexpected. And you can see the search there, is Viagra approved? site:/USDA.gov. What in the world came up? The USDA, buy cheapest generic Viagra? What's up with that? Well, it just so happens, this is an example of comment spam. It's probably the most common examples that you'll see when you go Google searching for Viagra on the internet. Blogs, commentary sites, whatever these sites are that allow anyone to put input, allow for user feedback, you'll see this kind of stuff. USDA is no exception. This is an open USDA site where somebody submitted an interesting idea that has been around since April 5th of 2012. It's still there. I checked it the other day. And just as a side note, there is no approved generic version of Viagra, or at least that I know of. All right, so I knew I was coming to Nashville, and I asked around, hey, what's a really awesome restaurant to go to? And they gave me the site. They said, put in watermark-restaurant.com on your browser, and you can find out all about this wonderful restaurant. I was like, awesome, okay. So if you guys did the same thing, most of you, you would see this come up. Hey, great, Watermark Restaurant. Oh, by the way, is anybody from Nashville? Do you recognize this restaurant? Yeah, yes. I can give you some other sites that, I have some additional slides that are interesting too, but of more familiar places. But this is one that I decided to pick on. So most of you would see that. Now, I'm running Firefox with no script, and when I accessed the site, this is what I saw before I approved the JavaScript to run on the site. I'm like, what? What in the world? So we got some strange content here. It's got some words that probably aren't associated with the Watermark Restaurant. Like, I'm just assuming, okay, let's look at the source code and see what in the world happened as to why it threw this out. Well, when you view the source code, it actually has a whole lot of hidden words and links, sentences that don't make sense. So what's going on here? Well, this is an example of content and link spam, and someone has infiltrated this site, embedded some code that basically will, and often the reason is they want to get good search engine placement on, say, Google or Bing. So there's all these tricks and techniques that are used to do this. So one of the goals for the bad guy to direct people to fake pharma sites is to hop on sites that already have good placement in search engines or are well known. And in this case, our client was a good choice. Now, what would I find if I, once again, search for Watermark Restaurant, but instead of directly putting in a URL, which somebody told me about, I knew somewhat about it, I knew part of it, and I said site : and then the site name. And lo and behold, if you do that in a search engine, lo and behold, you'll find that example right there, which should look familiar. It has the same exact text and a link that the previous slide showed. All right, so what in the incident that we worked, what did we see when we tried to stop the bad guys that had infiltrated some sites of our client? Keep in mind that we were trying to stop an ongoing compromise, not perform some kind of forensic investigation. So the main attacks came from a couple of IPs. One was Ukraine, the other was in Houston, Texas. So while these aren't directly Russian, I'm still going to blame Russia for the most part because a lot of the other IPs involved were Russian, and oftentimes these are Russian operations, even Eastern European like Ukraine, but so in that region. And so I won't be talking about the Chinese in this presentation, and there's a reason. It's like my boss says, the Chinese So this is all about money, and the Chinese already have all of our money. So they don't, that's the Russians are trying to get whatever's left over that the Chinese have. But all right, what was the initial attack vector web vulnerability? So we were dealing with multiple servers running Apache and PHP. They had a variety of different software. They had JBoss, WordPress, PHP MyAdmin. They had things like blind SQL injection. So there were a number of possible vectors that could have been used. We didn't determine the specific vector or vectors that they used, but any of those were good candidates. What kind of level did they have access to on the sites? Was it root, ultimate access, admin access, web, or multi-layer, depending, on who was involved on the site? And indications were that it was only a non-root web user privileged access. So I'm going to talk about the display techniques that they used. You already saw one instance in the example for Watermark. These are specific to the compromise. So there were obfuscated web app files, obfuscated redirection, and Htaccess files. So when you have a compromise, oftentimes you'll see this garbage. And this is an example in the blown up text of triple obfuscation. So they have a base 64 encoding, they have a deflation or a compression, and then after you did those things were performed, they actually had some more code obfuscation after that, after you unraveled that. So it was very multi-layered obfuscation that they used. But anytime, if you have a website, run a website, and you find this type of coding, you're probably in trouble. So the actual English at the bottom is what was the final decode of that portion. So these are typically, you'll find these these are either unique files or added to the top of existing files. And browsers execute code that they hit first. So, all right, here's an example of a site that was running obfuscated code like you saw, but it didn't redirect off the site. It actually stayed on the site, and that is a Tennessee city's government site. And I believe I checked, and it's still on there today. And I pulled this example a long time ago. So the link that you see, some of the highlighted stuff, those are links. They link to fake pharma sites, so it would take you off the site once you clicked on a link. Okay, what about redirection? So code that redirects the site. Once again, you see all the gobbledygook at the top, eval, whatever, and the translations at the bottom, and it's based on the refer. So where did you come from? So if you came from, and you'll see examples of Live, MSN, Yahoo, Google, any of those, then it actually runs different code as opposed to the normal. If you had a refer of a different didn't match one of those. So what you're seeing is it's basically search site, search term redirection. Here's the end result of a redirected Google search from a benign site. Pretty typical fake pharma type of page. Here's what we also saw. Modifications of Htaccess files. A normal one, a typical one is seen there, how it would be defined. And basically think of it as it's protection on a web page, you would see like a basic authentication pop-up or whatnot, and you have to put in credentials. That's normally what it's used for, is for access control. So what was going on here? The Htaccess files we saw didn't match what that typical format was. So went to Wikipedia and it said, hey, the original purpose of Htaccess was for per directory access control. Great, we knew that. But then it goes on, nowadays, however, Htaccess files can override many other configuration settings. Okay. Here's what we saw in Htaccess files that had been compromised. Looks nothing like our example of a normal one. However, this is completely valid. And you'll see, once again, we have an example of, hey, if they came from Google, based on the refer field the browser had, hey, we're going to direct them to Canadian-medshop-247.com. One thing I want you to notice is at the end, what's tacked on at the end of those URLs, that's an affiliate identifier. So basically, if you become an affiliate, you want to get paid, and the only way you can get paid is if they identify you and know it was you as an affiliate that directed them to their site. So that's how they do it. It's as simple as that, a simple field that they pass quite often. So what happens with the redirected Google search? Do a Viagra Google search, just put the search term Viagra in your Google search. Click on a link, it goes to the legitimate website with compromised Htaccess files, and it does the redirection to the fake Pharma site. Here's an example. So we put in Viagra online and then site : once again, we're picking on some site out there. And you see the result is it has some kind of compromise, and it's in a URL in the news, the heronmagazine.html. You click on that link, and it takes you here. All right, fake Pharma site. Great. Now, if you went directly to that page, this is what you got. So you got the normal thing. How did they maintain persistence? So one way they did it was through PHP Web Shells. And Web Shells are just backdoors into websites. This is an example of one, and it's called the Eugen shell. And it is very popular with the Russians, so that's another indicator that this may have been a Russian compromise. There are about 20 instances of this shell found across the sites. So they definitely wanted to maintain persistence. What kind of command and control did they have? Well, they went old school, and there were IRC connections. So they had botnets, an IRC bot running out on the undernet and the access for all. The .r file was an IRC daemon. All right, so what kind of countermeasures did we take? We removed the obfuscated files and backdoor shells, cleaned up the Htaccess files, removed the IRC bot and firewalled the IRC ports. One interesting thing was, in the process of taking these countermeasures, they were still able to do some things. So in order to shut them down, we saw some traffic go out to this one site called incomeinfo.net. And for whatever reason, just couldn't figure out how to shut it down. So finally, we had root access to this one site, that the client let us have, and we added an entry in Etsy hosts and just defined incomeinnet to loopback to 127.0.0.1. And then so it couldn't get out. And they never did have some kind of counterattack to that. So that's one reason that that we made the assumption they probably didn't have that root level access, just a web service type level access. And then we did a vulnerability assessment to plug any of the holes they might have used as their vectors for attack. All right, if any of this sounds interesting, say sign me up. Well, it's out in the open. This is how it works. So you can just search for Pharma affiliate or whatever. You'll find a site like this out in the open. So you sign up, you get your unique tracking ID, so you can get paid. You compromise some sites, which they don't mention on this. It's however you figure out how to get traffic driven to their sites. It's up to you, right? And then you choose your method of spamdexing. So spamdexing is just what we've been talking about. Content spam, link spam. You'll see other words. And it indicates lots of different methods. Keyword stuffing, article spinning, link farms, cloaking. Just go out and look and you'll find all kinds of interesting information. I did a little bit of that in this presentation. Here's Wikipedia, spamdexing, Black Hat, SEO, deliberate manipulation of search engine indexes. Cloaking is kind of an interesting term, but it's an SEO technique where the content presented to the search engine spider is different from that presented to the user's browser. And yeah, that's what we're seeing. All right, so did I skip one? No. Okay. All right, so how can you do this on your own? It's as easy as plugging in those search terms that you saw in the previous slides, then a site after that, a space, and then a site colon, and then whatever. You can put in the full URL, you can put in their domain, whatever you'd like. Look for any verbiage that's not related to the site. It doesn't have to be Viagra, it could be whatever, Cialis, casinos, online casino, whatever. But it doesn't have to be just restricted to say your site or whatever. You can look across the entire internet, the beauty of Google. And you'll find all kinds of interesting things when you do that. Here's an example of some of the compromised sites from the past and even some currently. You should recognize a few of those sites in there at least, like the Tennessee Lottery, which was, when I first gave this presentation, it's been a year and a half, 2 years, something like that. It's still out there. You know, there's an example that you can find out there for them. It's still out there in their website. It's not prevalent on their site. It's just a couple of instances, but it is interesting. Since we got running a little late, I'll skip it. If at the end anybody wants to do a live demo, we can do that. There were some other sites you might be familiar with that I ran across when I was searching Nashville stuff. And Mad Donnas, is anybody familiar with Mad Donnas? Yeah. Actually, if you do a search of just Mad Donnas, like their site's now flagged red. It wasn't when I first looked at them, but now it's like all bad site. Think of it. If there's the grilled cheesery. Is anybody familiar with the truck that goes around or whatever? Okay, yep. It was compromised. I think they've cleaned it up, but the interesting thing about Google is you can actually go back to their cache and even if they've cleaned it up, if they haven't told Google or whatever and cleaned it, have them clean it out of their cache, it's still in there, and you can see what they did to them. All right, so there is some action being taken against fake pharma sites. Here's a warning from the FDA. This is just an awareness thing. There is a glimmer of hope. Last June, the FDA actually shut down a number of illegal pharma sites, but I can just imagine this is a drop in the bucket, even though that sounds like a lot, 9,600, and I guess it is, I don't know. It's still out there. I mean, it's ongoing, but they're at least trying to do something. So Google may even notify you if you go out and search your site. They put this in place a couple years ago where they will flag the sites as they determine whether sites may be compromised, and you'll see that statement in Google searches. Keep in mind with this, like all of this, so I've been talking about websites, but that could just be the tip of the iceberg. So oftentimes multiple entities are involved with compromises. So it could be a big party, and it could go beyond your website. It could have progressed on your server or even into your entire network. This may just be the smoke. So I'm making a call, like, so oftentimes I think we feel powerless and like, hey, all this stuff is going on. The Chinese are grabbing everything and the Russians are taking all our money or whatever. And we feel helpless and we're like, you know, what can I do as a person about internet crime or whatever? Well, there is something you can do. And that's why I'm putting the call to action out to you guys. So as I showed you, it's as simple as a Google search to find out whether someone's been compromised. If you go and start doing this and you know these people, let them know, you know, these companies or whatever. So the fake pharmaceutical industry, they have no bounds, no sites off limits. I mean, churches, charities, it doesn't matter. Like, these guys don't care. They're just opportunists looking for sites to compromise to spread their crap. So check sites that you know of. If you work, you know, help out a charity or go to a church, check those sites. And if you find something, let them know. Let the right people know. Oftentimes they list, you know, the webmaster contacts on these websites. Let them know. I actually did this for a little while. I was just kind of randomly going around and seeing what kind of responses they'd have, and some people responded positively and said, thanks, we know this is going on. Others said, no, this isn't happening, and I kept you know, sending them stuff, oh no. And then some just completely got ignored. So so this is why I make my pitch for coming full circle back around, my pitch for the Nobel Peace Prize, because I'm trying to advance peace and harmony on the internet by shutting this junk down. And so if you know, like a Nobel Prize, you know, if you got connections, then please, like, hit them up for that. .com, yeah. Are there any questions? I've got some additional slides if you want to look through those. Or if you want to do a live demo. Yes. So if I understood your question, is there an antivirus that works?
No. Like Trend and Symantec, you can put in.
Oh, right. Yes. The site. Yeah. Checking the sites that way. Yes, I would recommend doing that. That's another avenue outside of a Google is see if the site's compromised that way. I don't. I mean, I've used 4 or 5 of them, but I don't know that I have particular. I'm not on a particular one.
So are there any simple things you can do to kind of see this stuff happening? I know you could use something like Tripwire and fetch changes to your PHP site. Are there things you can monitor and look for this stuff?
Well, file changes, obviously, and odd ones like Htaccess. How often are you going to change your Htaccess file? Modify it? Probably almost never. But, so, yeah, I would say file monitoring is
Does Apache keep track of redirects? Like, does it put it in the access log when you do a redirect?
it should. You get the 302 redirect.
Okay, so if you were monitoring your Apache log, you saw a bunch of 302s.
Yeah, that might be an indication. Yeah.
Okay.
Here's Mad Donna's, and let me see what's that. Yeah, that's actually on the site, the Mad Donna's website. They have a number of PHP files like that. There's grilled cheesery. Down here, you've got all the words and the links, so forth. And that was before you kicked in JavaScript. That was another one of those that, like that first example I used. Here's the Tennessee Lottery site. This is still there, I believe. You got some kind of 2007. Some dude won the lottery, and then you got a bunch of the words and links below it. It's not a blog or a comment thing or anything, I don't think so. But it's not widespread on the site. I'm not real sure why. If they started doing stuff and they mostly cleaned it up and dismissed that, or I don't know why. Here's an interesting one I found. Martha Stewart had a site. They let people get on there that I guess were well known in the Martha Stewart world or whatever. Dreamers into doers, and this site's compromised. Let me see what that is. I'll see where they messed with that. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, there's just an example of Martha Stewart's site being compromised. Oh, that's down below. That's what it is. It was 2 shots. That was the first part of the screen, and that's the bottom, if you kept scrolling. They put them in all kinds of directories. Just more examples. Texas State Aquarium had stuff. IPs of bad guys. This is what the source code of that first site I showed you, the Watermark site, actually looked like. You had some web stuff here, JavaScript here, and ended there, and you had text after that. And I assume that's how it kind of got messed up with the no script turned on. Somehow it got posed and threw out a lot of those words. I mentioned the obfuscated code. This is kind of what, after a couple of layers of deobfuscation, it showed as, and you were like, this is still a bunch of crap. However, you could start seeing some patterns in here, and this is that same code but kind of put vertical instead of horizontal. If you start looking down, you can see $T, that script is blah. So, they hop characters up through so many, over characters and for valid letters and so forth. I think this is the last thing I have. You see, You'll also, when you start searching, you'll see lots of sites with Viagra in the actual name. So you'll see like buy-viagra.tnlottery.gov. Not really, but just an example. Oftentimes, what that is, if you resolve those IP names, they come up with two different IP addresses. So either they've compromised the DNS, they've compromised the DNS somewhere. Either if you were having, if those are both legitimate spaces, they may have compromised your DNS or the host if you're having things hosted, host DNS. So you'll see things like that. So we can run off to lunch, or if you want to see a demo. Okay. Let's go buy some Viagra. See if this will work. Sure.